Thank you. Let's see, is this thing on? I feel like Britney Spears up here. Good morning. My name is Alex Polvi. I need the clicker. And I'm going to just share a story with you about starting a company and living the dream every day. All right. So these facts are based on a true story. It's going to be like hacker in the garage. It was actually a living room. We're hacking away, then get the team, raise some funding, the product goes well, and then we're acquired by the big public company. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. All right, so the quick abridged life history for me, I was first with Mozilla. There's some Mozillians around. Woohoo! I was originally on their server infrastructure, so helping run their server infrastructure right after Firefox 1.0 was released. So it was a great time to be part of Firefox because it was going like this, and it's still pretty crazy. I mean, yeah, there's some competition out there, but Mozilla fundamentally changed the web and the way that we think about open technologies on the web. So it was a great project to get started with. From there, I left Mozilla, joined Y Combinator, started CloudKick through that. CloudKick was my baby, and then we were eventually acquired by Rackspace Hosting, which is one of the largest cloud providers in the world. So, how do you get this stuff off the ground? So the first part of starting your company in Silicon Valley is finding your co-founders. And so, I don't know, how do you find your co-founders? Well, the way I started was with Gmail, Gmail chat. So I just started messaging some people. Hey, Steve, want to start a company? No, man, I just got a job. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that today. Click, OK, I didn't like Steve anyway. No problem. Next, click Dan. Hey, what's up, Dan? This was the IM that changed my life. Dan turned out to be one of my co-founders. This is Dan. Dan was like, yeah, sure, I'd be interested, but I have this pretty sweet job at IBM, so how about we try to get some funding first or get into one of these incubators, and then I'll quit my job, and we'll go from there. I'm like, OK, cool, not a bad start. Got Dan interested. The next I messaged literally another one of my buddies online and was like, hey, Logan, would you like to come start a company? He's like, actually, I hate my job right now. I'm living in Portland, which is about, I don't know, 10-hour drive or 2-hour flight away. And he goes, I really don't like my job right now, so actually, yeah, how about I'll quit and move down and just we'll start working on this together. And 2 weeks later, I kid you not, he was living in my apartment with me. So Logan gets a lot of credit because he's like, I'm going to take the credit card bills. we're going to just try this. So Logan and I were both on our own, just running out of money, but with the dream to try to figure something out. So we got one, and then Dan was ready to go. So next was figuring out a product. So we wanted to apply to Y Combinator, but we didn't have a product. So I mean, the way we did it was we didn't actually have the product up front. We just knew we wanted to start a company. Okay, it might be a little backwards, but that's how we did it. And so, how do you figure out a product? Well, we met at this really great sandwich shop in downtown San Jose, and our goal was to come up with this world-changing idea that will get us accepted in the most prestigious incubator in the planet. All right, we did it right there. Dan, Logan, and I sat down for lunch one day, and we were like, okay. Let's figure this one out. What are we going to do? And so we mulled around, thought about it, and it finally hit us. Scholarshipster. The original idea was Kiva for students. Is anybody familiar with Kiva? Kiva is this nonprofit that gives crowdsourced loans to entrepreneurs in third world countries. And so, like, if somebody in Africa wants to buy a little shop to run one of their businesses, they'll raise $1,000 on this platform, and it will go through. So our idea was to do this for scholarships for students, raising money, right? Not a bad idea. Okay, we'll apply to Y Combinator with this. So we applied to YC. That's an application process. Has anybody here applied to Y Combinator? Curious? Got a couple hands? Good. Anybody here done Y Combinator? Sorry. Okay. So we applied to Y Combinator. This is where the hustle came in. We became the most recommended Y Combinator applicant ever, and that's not because we're that awesome. It's because I found all the YC people I knew and asked them, begged, and pleaded if they would recommend us to get in. And that's a lesson around the hustle. You got to kind of hustle a little bit to get this stuff in. We were pretty no-name, developers from not that great of schools with not that great of backgrounds. So we had to push on for whatever we could get to get into YC. A couple weeks later, we got the response. This is Paul Graham. He goes, "We like the team, but not the idea." That reads, "We got the recommendations, but the idea sucks." So that was kind of a blow. And then he goes, "All right, come to the interview in 3 days with a new idea." All right, so we went and did our brainstorming thing again. I won't get into what that idea ended up being, but this acceptance was also prefaced with another warning. And I'm going to do exactly what you shouldn't do, which is put a whole bunch of text on stage and then read it to you, but it's pretty interesting. We applied right after the financial crisis in 2008, and Y Combinator sent this to us. It says, "You've probably noticed that the stock market crashed since the last Y Combinator cycle. We're going to keep doing as we normally do, but we should warn you that we have no idea what's going to happen come demo day. It may be that all the startups will jump off the diving board as usual, and there will be no water in the pool. We won't know for sure till March, but this batch of startups is probably going to be extra tough to survive. Since we don't know what to expect, we're offering you something new this cycle. Any group that wants to defer their interview to a future cycle will have the option to." Well, that's not that inspiring, is it? So, went back to my team. Dan, what do you think? Logan? Okay. Let's do it. All right. So we're gonna interview anyway. We're gonna just go for it. Why not? Life is short. Let's give it a shot. We go to the interview. We do our new idea, which was okay, and then we waited, and we waited at the bar. It turns out that you can, win or lose, still have a beer, right? Makes sense. So we were at Patty's Inn. This is another place in San Jose where we were at, just sort of waiting. And what we were waiting for is a phone call, right? And if you don't get the phone call, that means you're not in. But it's one of those weird psychology things because it's like, oh, maybe my phone was off. Maybe I just missed it, right? So it's getting kind of late. We're getting a little nervous. But sure enough, Paul Graham calls up, phone rings. I go run outside. Guys, I got the phone call. I'll let you know. The guys are waiting back in the bar. And Paul Graham goes, "All right, we're going to let you in. We'll take 6% of your company for $20,000. What do you think?" I'm like, 1 second. Let me ask my attorney, right? Guys. And we got in. We did it. They got us. They accepted us, and we got into Y Combinator. But turns out, getting into Y Combinator is just setting the table, right? That's not the accomplishment. That's just like getting things ready. When you raise any amount of funding, you got to think about it that way. Yeah, I just raised $20 million. Well, that actually means you just signed up for a whole lot of work, right? That's not the accomplishment. So we just got the table set. Now it is time to hack and hack and hack and hack and hack. Yes, lots of software development. So we were 2 developers and a graphic designer. And so hack. And we changed our idea again. And then we changed our idea again. This puts us on our 4th idea in the course of about 4 weeks. But at Paul Graham had a little opening party at his house. And we were talking about ideas again. And that is actually where we birthed the product we ended up working on, which is CloudKick. CloudKick, all right, I'm going to do my pitch. I'm a pro here. CloudKick builds tools that helps other companies manage server infrastructure. So you know how companies have servers to run their websites or their emails, and there's always a group of people responsible for taking care of that stuff? Well, CloudKick, we build software tools to help those guys do their job. We're focused mainly on different cloud products like Rackspace and Amazon. And our tools are like the traditional stuff is kind of like Outlook, and we built the Gmail. Okay, so kind of the new, fresh, interesting one. So we started doing that. And 2 months later, we launched on TechCrunch. So we put the product out there. We launched just a few days before the demo day. So demo day at Y Combinator is really what Y Combinator is all about. It's about getting you set up to this point where you can demo your product in front of a bunch of investors. And the great thing about demo days, it's this reverse market for startup entrepreneurs. So instead of you going and pitching all these individual investors, the first day there's like 60 investors. The next day there were like 80 investors, and you just do your pitch, and then they come to you, right? So it's a great way to get going. So we did demo day. We fared all right. You know, a lot of the press wrote articles like the top 5 startups at demo day. We were like in half of them, so we did okay. And then we pitched, and we pitched, and we pitched again. Demo day is where it gets started, but you still need to go to your follow-up meetings. And it turns out we pitched over 40 investors, which means we talked to pretty much everybody at Silicon Valley over the course of 6 months, which when your company is only 2 months old, 6 months is an eternity. And everybody said no. No, 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 no. And I can't blame them. I mean, we had really no idea what we were doing. Our product didn't really have that much traction, and it was really our first time at this, so we had no track record of success. So we're about to give up, mainly because we were, you know, maxing out the credit cards, and it was time to, but giving up meant start maybe doing some consulting and kind of string the thing along for a little bit. But then we met Rich. First, isn't it kind of funny that our investor's name is Rich? And as an aside, our lawyer's name was Buddy. So Rich and Buddy. Anyway, it's too funny. So we met Rich. We met Rich. He was at another meeting. Paul Graham from Y Combinator had introduced us. And Rich was great because he took a meeting. He's like, okay, I'll do it. We're like, what? I mean, okay, yeah. Because we had just pitched like so many people, and he was like that. He's like, okay, I get it. Sounds good. Oh, boom, we had raised $750,000 in the course of like 2 meetings with Rich after like 6 months of just trying over and over again and you know, quite a bit of despair. So now things are on the up and up, and we love Rich. So things are looking good. Shortly after that, we had passed 1 million servers that had gone through the system. That number sounds big, but people are spinning up cloud instances all day long, and so these are the total instances that had gone through the platform. We had about 5,000 users, but they're all free. Our product isn't the type of product that will ever have 1 million users. It's like Rackspace is doing 1.2 billion in revenue a year on like 100,000 customers. So you know, it's different than the big consumer products. So we were doing okay. 6 months later, we launched the paid product. This puts us in. I guess I didn't do the timelines, but yeah. So 6 months later, it puts us in the paid product. The team, the whole thing is about 1 year old now. The team is at 5 people. A couple months after that, we raised an additional $2 million, and this time instead of 6 months, it took us 2 weeks, and that was with the close, which means we pitched for a week, and the investors said okay, and then they wired us money a week later. So very smooth. So kind of got through that rough part, and then this was the meeting that changed my life. The call with the president of Rackspace on the calendar one day. It's coming out. This was about 1.5 years into the company. So Rackspace had been a partner with us for a long time, but we had this particular one that was going up. And that phone call, which started the acquisition process, was the craziest 90 days of my life. I'm not kidding you. Like, I lost my vision in one eye. Like, it was crazy. But that's TBD for the workshop from 1 o'clock to 1:50. Anyone wants to go? Okay. So the whole story happened from December 15th, 2008. I was 23 at the time, and it was acquired on December 15th, 2010, exactly 2 years later. I was 25. At that time, we were 12 people. We had about 10,000 users. 2 million servers had gone through the system. At that point, we were Y Combinator's largest exit in the first 5 years of Y Combinator. Held that title for about a week, and then we exited for somewhere between $0 and $100 million. Needless to say, Rich, pretty happy. It was about 10 months after he put in that $2 million that we exited, and he got his VC returns. So now, just to reel it back in, some deep thoughts with Alex Polvi, to leave you guys with something. This is a little way I think about different areas around the world. I've been traveling quite a bit to different startup places, just trying to suss it out. And here's what I think about Silicon Valley. These are the 3 metrics I kind of evaluate different regions on. So cost to operate a business. Silicon Valley is actually really bad for that. It's really expensive to run a business in Silicon Valley. But the access to talent, hackers, is quite good. I wouldn't give it 5 stars because I actually think there are regions with stronger development talent, but it's really good. And there's also a big war on talent, so it's not really easy to hire people. But the startup life cycle, the funding to growth capital, the customers to acquisition or IPO, it's as good as it gets, right, in Silicon Valley. So to do the whole startup life cycle, it's amazing. But here, this is my judgment from being here the past couple days and talking to startups here. Cost to operate a business here is great. It's relatively low. Again, it's not the cheapest place in the world to run a business, but it's good. So this is good. You, as an early stage startup founder, you want it to be not very expensive. I think the access to development talent's quite good as well. That said, there's much fewer of them here, but the ones that there are, I think are quite good. But the startup life cycle isn't that great. But that's okay, because that one can get better. And it's events like this that are the early seeds for those sorts of things, and it takes 5, 10, 15 years for this life cycle to actually play out. So Silicon Valley's just been at it longer. So encouragement here is that we need to just keep going, and that will get better and better. And then imagine if those stars were all the way over. I mean, this place starts to become a very attractive place to run a company. I think that the internet is the biggest opportunity of a lifetime, and the hackers will be the kings of the new world order. So if you don't learn to program, or if you haven't learned to program, I'd recommend it. And for those of you that have, now is your time to start a business and go for it, because the opportunity is there. The internet's only been around for 15 years, right? And we have, what, a third of the population online, maybe a quarter. So there's a lot of room to go. And finally, now is really the time to go for it. And by now, I mean when you're young. People are like, why'd you put all this risk? You left your company that you had a good paid job. It's not risk at all. I mean, I had no house, no kids, no girlfriend for that matter, no car, nothing. So it's like, what are you actually risking? You're risking a little credit card debt, and that's it. So there's one thing I can leave you with, now is the time to actually start a company if you want to do it, because your actual risk profile is extremely low, and your ability to put lots of energy into something is probably the greatest it will ever be. So that's it. Thank you.